Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, do I lead it off? We are going to start this meeting. President Hudley Hayes is a few minutes away, but she asked me to get us started, so we will get started. Could you call the roll, please?
Hudley Hayes. DeLugich.
Here.
Babcock.
Here.
Hara. Woods Gray. Here. Fire Chief Crawley.
Here.
Deputy City Attorney Linda Nguyen.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. We will start with any commission comments. Oh, I'm sorry.
Do the flag salute. Yep.
Sorry, I should really say that on here. Sorry.
Everybody stand, hand over your heart, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing and join me in a moment of silence in honor of our past and present members of the Los Angeles City Fire Department who devote their lives to the protection of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Now, do we have any comments? I will just say that we had a very interesting trip to the drill tower, President Hudley Hayes and I, and we learned a lot, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it another time when we hear the validation report, but it was very illuminating and very well organized, and it made me wish I'd become a firefighter when I was in my 20s, and I might want to jump out the window onto that thing. Yeah. And with that, I will turn it over to the chief for her reports.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. And just a few comments for me. This will be my meetings and events from March 16th to April 1st. On March 21st and March 22nd, my command staff, as well as myself, had the opportunity to meet and with all of our all chiefs meetings and also our executive staff. Really incredible opportunity just to walk through where we are as an organization, the state of the department, our emergency operations commander, Chief Villanueva, as well as our administrative operations commander, also had the opportunity to speak with Chief Saunders. And just a great time to spend a few hours with our all chiefs officers, and it was a great 2 days for us. March 26th, had the opportunity to meet with Class 23-3 prior to their graduation, which is this Thursday on April 4th. Had the opportunity to talk about our expectations specifically and welcome them to our LAFD. March 27th, I attended the swearing in for the new fire chief at Santa Monica. His name is Chief Matthew Halleck, and I've met with him before in the past. He was part of our LA area fire chiefs, and he's going to do a fantastic job for the city of Santa Monica. March 27th, that same day, I had the opportunity to attend a Women's History Month event that was hosted by Public Works and listened in on a panel discussion with other city leaders. And as we're ending March, which is our Women's History Month, it was a fantastic opportunity to represent the department. On March 28th, another opportunity to represent the department, and I was a speaker at the 3rd Annual Women's Management Academy Leadership Program, where, and this is hosted by City Personnel and General Manager Dana Brown, and I just wanted to focus on that just for a moment. This academy is designed to increase the knowledge of contracting, procedures, negotiations, budget, program development, project management, and other skills with the goal of closing the gender gap within the city's management classification. So really good opportunity where we, as our city leaders, get to select one candidate and they attend this 8-week leadership academy. On March 29th, as I will continue to, for all the right reasons, had the opportunity to meet with our stakeholders, with the Stentorians, spent a few hours with their executive board, and as well as LAWFS, Los Bomberos, the COA, and UFLAC. I'll continue to meet and discuss our DEI initiatives, hiring, recruiting, and retaining our candidates. April 1st, this was just yesterday, I was invited to represent the LAFD with our public health partners and LA County Fire Department as well. It was Heart Heroes Celebration. This was a really neat event where public health and the other partners took the opportunity to train. This is amazing, over 500,000 individuals within the county on hands-only CPR, and our department did a fantastic job and jumped on board with assisting with training those over 500,000 people, which is amazing. And then lastly, yesterday afternoon, I will continue to meet with all of the city leadership. I met with Councilmember Tracy Park and discussed our budget needs as well as our issues with our prioritized critical hiring of our vacant civilian positions. Had really good dialogue with her, and I'm going to continue to meet with public safety and budget and finance to line us up for the right reasons and make sure that our position and my position is heard. End of report.
Thank you, and I'll now turn the baton back over to President Hunley Hayes. Oh, won't I? Yeah.
She's going to keep going.
Oh, I am?
Try to
Okay.
get caught up.
Oh, okay. All right, then. Do we have some verbal reports on significant incidents and activities? Chief Gutierrez, welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam President, Vice President, Fire Chief Crowley, Commissioners, City Attorney, Command Staff, and guests. My name is Steve Gutierrez. I humbly serve as the Commander of Operations South Bureau. And this morning, I'd like to just briefly discuss an incident that took place that highlights really LAFD as an all-risk first responder, as well as some of our high-level capabilities and specialized equipment. On March 26, 2024, at approximately 9:45 hours, under the command of Operations South Bureau, Assistant Chief Carlos Calvillo, along with a whole host of other resources, they were dispatched to an incident located at 26214 South President Avenue in the Harbor Gateway area, Council District 15. LAFD was requested to support LAPD on scene of a domestic violence incident, which also had a hostage. In this incident, a suspect had barricaded inside of a two-story apartment house, holding a victim for approximately 3 to 4 days. The suspect's unwillingness to cooperate with law enforcement negotiators, and at one point fired several shots from a firearm into the surrounding community. The victim hostage was able to exit the building safely, which left the suspect alone in the residence, but refusing to cooperate and threatened to burn the building. While LAPD engaged in negotiations, LAFD resources established a perimeter to protect the adjacent civilian properties in the case of fire, and due to the nature of the incident and the possibility that the suspect could ignite the building, the command team decided to deploy the LAFD's RS-3 robot to this incident. So a little bit about this robot. This robot, we've used it on other instances, but what it is, it's a very innovative, remote-controlled robotic firefighting vehicle. So it's operated with a diesel-powered engine. It remotely controlled and is tracked and it's fitted with a large stream capabilities flowing up to 2,500 gallons per minute. And the advantages of this equipment, yet we operate it, but we can operate it from a safe area where we don't expose firefighters and, more importantly, the public or even law enforcement to any undue risk. So in this case, knowing that it would be unsafe to position firefighters in the line of the fire, the need to protect other buildings from the fire, with the use of the robot, firefighters were able to stay a safe distance away, yet still provide fire protection efforts with the remote-controlled robot. The LAFD continues to train with LAPD SWAT on a multitude of scenarios constantly. In fact, we have tactical EMS medics that are embedded with them on a lot of these occasions. So this is just another way how we protect the community until it's safe to operate for both law enforcement and fire department to engage. This incident demonstrates the unique capabilities of the LAFD as an all-risk provider and the ability to protect the communities, as the incident was rendered safe with no injuries to either the public, LAFD, or LAPD responders. And that was it, and I'll avail myself for any questions.
Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Thank you.
Another thing I didn't know about in the fire department, the robotic thing. Come on up, Chief Shao, for our report on medical emergencies for the period of March 19th to April 1st.
Good morning, Madam President, Commissioners, Chief Crowley, Deputy City Attorney Nguyen, colleagues and guests. My name is Peter Shaw. I'm the Acting Deputy Chief assigned to the EMS Bureau. I'd like to highlight an incident that occurred on Tuesday, March 25th at approximately 1900 hours, whereby Engine 19 and Rescue 19 responded to a bicyclist down at 12700 San Vicente Boulevard, which is just adjacent to the Brentwood Country Club. As opposed to a normal bicycle accident, when they arrived, they found a 75-year-old male lying next to the curb, actually in cardiac arrest with visible bleeding from his head. Fortunately, bystander CPR was being performed, and it only took about 4 minutes for the engine and rescue to arrive on scene. And again, as noted, the patient did have an obvious head injury. There was visible bleeding. These type of injuries are very complicated for a number of reasons. First and foremost is the cardiac arrest. However, in addition to that, being that it's a 75-year-old patient, it would be a fair assumption to say that they had some type of a medical event that possibly precipitated the fall. And so that's something that the paramedics have to weigh versus the injury sustained in the fall. And that's important because it determines where the rescue is going to end up treating the patient, whether it's on scene or if they're going to rapidly transport the patient to an ER. Given the advanced capabilities of our rescues, they're able to perform most of the duties that they can in an ER right there on the street side. And also working under the assumption that the patient had some type of underlying condition, a head injury would be extremely deleterious. For example, if the patient was on blood thinners, the probability of an uncontrolled bleed is extremely high, which in and of itself would be a very limiting factor to their recovery. And this consideration would also determine what type of emergency room that the patient would be transported to. Luckily, our paramedics are very highly trained and very experienced. This particular crew actually had well over 50 years of medical experience between the two partners. They quickly recognized that the patient was in a V-fib rhythm, which is a rhythm that responds very, very well to a shock. They went ahead, shocked the patient, cardioverted him, returned that heartbeat and that pulse, and then the patient actually began to breathe on their own. That allowed them to now transition over and deal with the trauma-type injury. They were prepackaged for a C-spine, which is to hold their neck and head into alignment, and they were taken over to Ronald Reagan Trauma Center at that point, as opposed to the nearest medical center. And now the patient is luckily there recovering. This is kind of an ordinary injury in the sense that we see these every day, but the importance of this type of this particular incident is it highlights the complexity that our paramedics deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's not just simply a scoop and run, take them to the hospital, but it's a whole series of consequences that lead to a specific treatment modality. And it's just another example of the unseen complex challenges that our men and women face every day on a daily basis. So, thank you.
Here's a question. Was that LAFD that delivered the baby on the sidewalk?
Which particular incident, ma'am?
It was last week,
Yeah.
I think. Was that,
By USC, wasn't it?
Yes,
It was
ma'am.
in the LA Times. I think it
You
was,
sent to us.
wasn't it our people?
Yes, ma'am, in Fire Station 10's first in.
oh, okay. That was, I thought, an interesting incident, an unusual one at that. But the fire department, I know, is always ready to take care of whatever the incident might be. And I'm sure that mother was very happy to have them there by her side.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now I really will turn it back over to President Hudley Hayes.
Okay, that takes us down to number 3, presentations. Do we have? No presentations. So we're at public comment, but I don't have any cards. No public comment. Wow. So we're on number 5, the consent agenda items, A and B.
Madam President,
Yes.
on the A, LAFD projects, sometime back, sometimes I look at things and sometimes I don't. I did look at this, the report, and I remember sometimes back, I asked for a report on the department's assistance with the unhoused because in several of the Bureau reports, they had mentioned that they were doing things to help with the unhoused. And so I remember asking for a report, but I don't seem to see it on here.
Where is it?
I don't see it on here.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You are saying that you think it fell off.
Fell off.
Okay.
But I was still interested in the work that the department is doing to help the unhoused.
Okay.
And I heard from 2 bureaus over the last 6 months maybe, but we just kind of wanted to hear more
Okay.
in a report that was more comprehensive.
I think Commissioner Woods Gray, it would be helpful, can you be specific about what in particular? Because I do remember us talking about this at one point, and could you be a little more specific about what you'd like that report to include?
I wanted to know what the different bureaus had said that they were doing different things. And I wanted to know what the different bureaus were doing, or what the fire department was doing in any possible way to assist with the unhoused, because it just came out of a report. I never really thought that much about it until I heard them say, well, we did this and we did something else. But I thought, well, let's see, are there other people who are doing other things in the department and
That helped.
that helps with the unhoused?
So Chief Crowley, maybe what we can do is maybe if you can gather some data and some statistics, right? And I think what you need, you want to see it compiled.
Yes, one report for the whole
One
for the
report
whole
for the
bureau,
whole-
I mean, for the whole department,
For all of LAFD.
as opposed to one bureau after another, or one department.
And do you want it written or do you want it verbal?
Written would be great.
Okay.
We certainly can do that.
Okay. And do you want like a specific, because it helps them to make a report, do a report that gets you what you want. Do you want it for a certain time frame? Do you want to see it for like the last 6 months, or? Just so we can make sure that we get we get the information that you want the commission to have.
I would just like to know anything that they've done or that they're doing
Okay.
in the, over the last year or 2, that would, that has helped, that is helping or to assist with the unhoused population. And it came from the field. I heard them saying that they were
Okay.
doing different things, but I don't know exactly what all the different things are.
Okay.
And if we could probably have it within maybe a month or 2, so put a time on it so that we get it back.
Okay.
Because last time, I think maybe there was no time on it, and maybe it just dropped off.
So maybe what we can do is we can get it.
And Betty might be able to relocate some of that information, too.
Second meeting in May, which will give Betty time to go back and look and see if we can compile this information so that it really actually tells us something, right?
Yes,
Okay, is that good?
that's fine.
Second meeting in May?
That's fine. I just noticed that it had dropped off, and considering it's like the biggest issue in our city, I just wanted to know what
What we're
was
doing.
going on.
Okay. That makes
Thank
sense to
you.
me. You're welcome. So you don't want to, so we don't need to pull this now?
No.
Okay.
So, Madam President, I'll move the consent agenda items A and B.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the recommendation is we're going to receive and file both. That takes us down to item 6, which is our regular agenda items. A, we're just going to have a report by the department outlining fire prevention activities for the Fire Prevention and Public Safety Bureau.
Good morning, Madam President and honorable commissioners. My name is David Perez.
Good morning.
I am a fire deputy chief assigned to command the Fire Prevention and Public Safety Bureau and honored to serve as your fire marshal. I'm here to present report number 24-031, the fire prevention inspection activity for the FPB for calendar year 2023. This report, you'll notice, does not look like similar reports from the past. This year, the FPB is undergoing some changes in how we gather data. We're changing from 3 different software programs to 1. And in the process of doing that, certain fields don't carry over exactly. So we had to adjust the report to that new reality. Our plan going forward is once we completely moved over into our new program, FIMS, we'll have much better data and much more detail within that data. So next year's report, we're expecting to be much better than this one, although this one definitely shows what we're trying to get across today. One other point with the new fire inspection management system, the FIMS program, is that by the end of the year, we intend to roll it out to all of the fire stations as well. So all of the elements of the fire department will now be on one fire prevention software program, except for Coupa. It's noted in the beginning of this report, Coupa is not included in this report. That's because while the rest of the Fire Prevention Bureau operates on a calendar year, Coupa, by its enabling legislation in the Health and Safety Code, operates on a fiscal year. So sometime in the third quarter, we'll have a report from Coupa. So that's coming up later for you. Probably the single most important point that we want to bring out in this report today is on page 2, and that's the difference between what we were actually able to accomplish compared to the amount of actual available hours we had to accomplish it in. The Bureau, in total, completed 87% of its inspection load last year. It did that with only 74% of its total workforce. So we had a lot of vacancies. We started the year with 14 inspector vacancies across the Bureau. Over the period of time where we lost a lot of people, especially towards the end of the year, that number crept up continually throughout the year. We also had people off on duty-related injuries and sick time.
So how many people have you lost now?
Well, we've actually hired 20 since this period. So right now, we're down to 9 Inspector 1 and 8 Inspector 2 vacancies in the Bureau. And we're preparing to request 9 in the next round of promotions if the department is able to do that. And I'll speak a little bit more about a couple of other strategies we have going forward here. So with this, and it should also be noted that these numbers only really pertain to the sworn members and the Fire Protection Engineering Associates in the Plan Check Unit. It does not include all of the civilian vacancies that we have at the moment. We had 3 units that were below the average of 87%. One of those, the Central Industrial Unit, was probably the unit that carried the most vacancies consistently throughout the year. Out of its 8 authorized positions through most of the year, they were carrying 7 vacancies. Only 1 inspector stayed in that unit to get us through. And so the captain was working a bunch of the workload. Plus, we had inspectors from other units working overtime to help out. But at the end of the day, that it really does affect the efficiency of the Central Industrial Unit. By the end of the year, with the 20 new inspectors that we had promoted, we filled all 8 of the seats in Central Industrial, plus we moved 1 inspector over from the legal unit. So they now have 9 positions, and their numbers have definitely come up dramatically. Another issue we had with Central Industrial was that they were the first unit to go to FIMS while actively conducting inspections under the FPA program. The oil wells unit is the first one to go to FIMS, but they were created at the same time as FIMS, so they didn't have this data issue that Central Industrial had. Working through the data problems with Central Industrial, we got all of those fixed, so now as the other maintenance units, West Industrial, Valley Industrial, and Harbor Industrial are now on FIMS, they are not having the same issues because we fixed all of that ahead of time. So we're going forward there. Another one of our units that fell below the average this year was the public assemblage unit. PA is probably the unit that has the most seniority amongst Inspector 1s. It's a unit that Inspector 1s love to get to. Because of that and because of the drain we saw towards the end of the year, we had a huge experience drain and knowledge drain in PA. We were able to fill the spots, but we were filling them with inspectors who had to be taught how to manage all of the intricacies when you're working with event promoters and event staff or venue staff. So that put a much heavier workload on the senior inspectors to train up the more junior inspectors in their craft. That took away from some of their regular inspection responsibility duties, and in particular, the larger apartment complexes between 4 and 6 stories in height. Those are PA responsibilities, and so we did see a decrease there. But we're also seeing an increase now as, and their numbers are returning to normal as the newer inspectors are more quickly able to handle events now. In Fire Development Services section, all of the units, they don't have quotas because of the way their workload comes in. Their workload comes in as new projects come into the city or new tenant improvements come into various buildings. So with FDSS, one of the things that they've been working on and helping to streamline is let me back up. They are working to streamline the entire permit and inspection process. They've actually created and continued virtual counter access now. We're one of the major players of the city departments in the Build LA software program that coordinates permitting throughout the various departments that have permitting responsibilities. And that's done a lot to help, particularly with the 100% affordable housing projects that are in the city. When those are identified in Build LA as 100% affordable housing, those are fast-tracked through the system, not only in our department, but in other departments as well. So they've actually been able to maintain some of their timing issues. For example, in the field inspection unit, we typically try to get to any requests for an inspection within 72 hours, and they've actually done very well in that area. One other unit in the administrative section that fell below, just slightly below the 87% average this year was our cannabis unit. Again, this was a unit that carried one inspector vacancy out of 4 for most of the year, so they were running at about 75% staffing. Also, cannabis inspections tend to be a little bit more complicated. The basic inspection is actually very easy, but typically these occupancies, they've put in so much extra security because of the type of business that they have that they're always in violation of the fire code. So it typically takes a lot more inspections and re-inspections. Their re-inspection rate was particularly high, it was 34%. So 34% of all of their initial inspections found violations that require an inspector to go out and do at least one reinspection, so which is a particularly high rate. So that slows them down as well. Also, a lot of their cases end up creating legal packets, which is a particularly time-consuming process for an inspector. So that, amongst those reasons, that's why they were the way they were. But they are, now that they're fully staffed, their numbers are coming up as well. One final area, which is work that we don't necessarily plan on, but it does come in and we encourage it, is the FPB referrals from the field. In the FIMS program, the portions of the FIMS program that all field resources have is a FPB referral form. Whenever they see something that doesn't look right or they want us to take a look at, they can very quickly input the information into the FIMS referral form. It hits our research unit, who then figures out what the correct unit is to go out and respond and take a look at the problem. And we're typically getting between 65 and 70 per quarter referrals. And so that's an addition to our workload that we don't count on, but it's a service that we provide to our field resources. Not included in this report, Madam President, is the civilian vacancies. And as you know, the CAO's office recently released a memo deleting or marking positions for deletion. We have 72 total civilian positions in the Bureau. Of those, 14 were vacant as of the date of the CAO memo. 11 of the 14 were marked for deletion. Amongst those are 2 senior admin clerks, 5 administrative clerks, 2 management analysts, 1 from the Homeless and Affordable Housing Unit, 1 accounting clerk, and 1 fire protection engineering associate from Plan Check. That's going to be a significant impact going forward. All of those people, not only do they provide a certain amount of service to the public, but they are also what keeps the units in the Bureau operating at their peak efficiency. So to lose these positions is going to be a big impact on the Bureau as a whole. And that completes my report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions?
Well, I had a question. Why is it that we weren't able to fill the civilian positions?
We were trying to fill the civilian positions, ma'am. It's just I think the amount of civilian positions we have department-wide and the personnel services section was, just trying to get them all through, but they're, the bandwidth that they had was restricted.
So are the special requirements like they can't be newly hired, they have to be promoted from the inside, or
We
what
can't
keeps
even
them?
promote from within at this point without going through an unfreeze request.
Because
And
I
for
hate
every
to see
position-
the positions deleted, just because I realize that we need, the city needs to cut the budget, when we need to have the people on board, but if we can't find them, and there's so many people unemployed, I'm just wondering, how do we do that?
I don't have
And if
an-
I can, I'll just interject in here. So just from the city side, you're right, ma'am, where you talk about the city trying to decrease its budget deficit. So that's what the city's looking at, is deleting civilian positions, and close to 2,000. From the fire department specifically, and from Chief Perez's perspective of what impacts his bureau specifically as well, it impacts the entire department. It's a proposal, so we're working with city leadership to ensure they understand what the impacts are with deleting our civilian positions, which is on the table right now, is about 74 across our entire department. Yes, and that's on the civilian side. So there may be some room for us to report back on what our strategies are on the prioritized critical hiring and how that's moved into deletion of civilian positions. So that may be something that the commission may be interested in hearing, of what those impacts are. But we are working very diligently to make sure city leadership understands the negative impacts across the board, like I said, from the Fire Prevention Bureau, let alone the entire department. And as for the vacancies, yes, I agree with Chief Perez. We have attempted to fill all those over the past year. There's been a lot of delays just from the city side, knowing that there was many other vacancies across the board that they're trying to fill. We're in line with everybody else, and so we've been carrying these vacancies, but not due to any lack of trying to fill those on our side.
So is a lot of the problem with personnel department?
I think that personnel is understaffed as well, and they are trying to fill other vacancies across the entire city, the other 40-plus departments. So it's a holistic issue. But now the city is in the position of where and how can they cut the deficit. And that's why the CAO is recommending this proposal to delete close to 2,000 civilian positions across the entire city.
Vice President Delucich.
Well, just on that point, I know a couple months ago, and maybe you guys are still developing, and I asked for, again, so that we can help make the case for the budget for the fire department, the 3 to 5 top budget priorities for the department, because I know we need everything, but that's not a very effective way to go in and ask. So I would love if we could get a sense, or do you know when we can get a sense of what the top priorities?
You will have that with our priorities, my priorities, by the end of this meeting. We already have that set up for you.
Oh, great, okay. And then, a different point, if you were done, Commissioner Woods-Gray, I'm always interested in the brush clearance, because I live in Mount Washington, and it's very brushy. And I'm interested in how bad the government, which says government parcels, and I'm not sure if is that city or county, or I guess it's city.
It would include all government.
Oh, okay, but then MRCA, that's a state, that's the Mountains Conservancy or something?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and they're even worse.
Yes,
So-
we have no jurisdiction in MRCA itself.
Right.
That's, like you said, it's a state agency. It's operated by the National Park Service, but it's a state agency, state-owned land, and we have absolutely no jurisdiction in that area.
Except don't we end up clearing the brush if they don't? And don't they, I mean, so I guess that's my question is, do we end up clearing the brush when they don't, and then we get then paid for that by those guys who aren't clearing their own brush?
No, ma'am, not in MRCA. The only area where we extend into MRCA is if a privately owned parcel that borders MRCA in order to get their 200 feet of clearance from their structure. If that happens to encroach upon MRCA land, then they are required to go in and do that part of MRCA territory.
Right.
Only to get their 200 feet of clearance. And the private homeowner is responsible for that area. But
that's
the city
crazy.
has no jurisdiction in that.
There's a big, huge hill in my neighborhood that's owned by the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy that's just totally overgrown. So that's just, that. I mean, it's got houses all around it.
Yes, ma'am.
So
So
just-
where each of those houses surround it, their 200 feet of clearance going in may encroach onto MRCA land, and they're still required to clear that. However, the bulk of the MRCA property, which is managed by the National Park Service, and NPS has a very strict policy on not touching, letting nature run its course. This happens in all national parks across the country as well. That's their wildland firefighting philosophy, is they just let nature do its thing.
Okay, I understand that in the national forest, but not in like
And real quick,
0065.
just to clarify too, Chief Perez, though, if they're out of compliance, although we don't have any jurisdiction, we still write a notice, correct?
We notify CAL FIRE. It's state-owned land, so CAL FIRE will take, but I don't know that CAL FIRE even, I don't know what their extent is to try to clear that, because I don't believe MRCA does any clearance at all.
Well, it seems like they should contract with us to do what needs to be done, but I don't know how
I
that
think it's
happens.
because they choose not to. It's not that they don't have the
Right.
resources. I think it's a choice that they're making to let nature be
Right.
nature.
I mean, it was talking about cutting down trees.
Which is
but-
fine
okay,
if
fine.
nature were in nature
Yes.
only. But when you have when you have homes surrounding, there should be some way that we don't just say this is their choice, because ultimately, if the catastrophe happens,
not
we're
gonna-
going to
it's
be
not gonna stop there.
responsible
It's not going to step in those boundaries.
for those homes around, so it doesn't seem to me that that's a smart thing for them. What do we do about that?
I don't, we're talking about state and federal government. I don't know.
Yeah.
I got it.
And
So
we,
this is
Very
something
and,
that's-
significant.
yeah, and we
From the
have
feds,
raised, it's,
state.
it's not a new issue, right? So we have to start with what we have control over, which the Fire Prevention Bureau just does an incredible job meeting the metrics, let alone going above and beyond. So we start with what we can control, which is whatever those parcels are in the very high fire hazard severity zone. 100% completion, by the way, which is incredible, with over 150,000 parcels.
Yeah.
And this gets done in a very professional way. We know that we can control that. We've had high-level conversations at the state level for sure in making sure that we're good partners and vice versa. So our inspectors will still go out and look at those parcels, and if it's outside of the city or it's a state-owned property, that information is shared, saying, hey, we have issues, we have concerns about this, so now it's on record, from the fire marshal's office all the way up through CAL FIRE, as to say, okay, we have issues with this, these are our concerns, and it's on record. And then that's why we do move into the 200 feet of clearance, because that will give us that potential defensive space, but you're correct, the fire, the winds, the ambers, all of it will still cause issues in the city. So that's what we've done up to this point, and we're going to keep pushing to establish those relationships and then hold those other entities accountable so that we can minimize the risk to our communities.
Okay.
Thank you.
So my question is a different question. How many people did you say now that you have? How many inspectors?
We have 154 total inspectors. We have 9 Inspector 1 vacancies and 8 Inspector 2 vacancies.
For the entire city of Los Angeles.
Yes, ma'am.
So Commissioner Woods Gray was questioning what we do in terms of trying to do something about the homeless population. It is my understanding that in addition to all of this that you do, understaffed, that you also have the responsibility of inspecting new construction before it can be occupied.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's one of the things that we're talking about here. I don't know what the size of those buildings would be, but the issue is, what the public doesn't understand is, we can do all the development that we want, And we can do all of this fast tracking of affordable housing or whatever it is, but ultimately, in order to get those places open and occupied as quickly as possible, you have to go and do the inspection and sign off on everything. Am I right?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
With only how many people?
We have one inspector full-time assigned to the Homeless and Affordable Housing Unit, and then we have other inspectors in the Fire Life Safety Field Inspection Unit that will pull over to assist if we have a backlog.
And so now you are also down on your civilian side, which means that you don't have anybody that does the processing, the analysis, the completion, all of that kind of stuff. So you're going to tell us what your priorities are, but it seems to me like somebody on the city side needs to understand what is going on here. And that once again, the weight of this falls on the Los Angeles Fire Department. In addition to being a first responder, this is what we're talking about. Commissioner Woods Gray raised a good point about other things that also are our responsibility, and we cannot continue to be understaffed and underfunded with as much construction that there's going on in the city. And I'm not sure that the city side understands the danger, once again, of underfunding us. So you're going to tell us, though, what the priorities are, but it seems to me like this one is one of those that should be like right up there, given everything that we read in this report. And I understand that. I think you and I understand what happened when I was on 10 years ago and they were trying to open up. They were trying to get started with something. Was it that new, not the new place where they wanted to have out in Hollywood, where they were going to have the Oscars and all of that stuff? Do you recall that? No, you don't. What?
Kodak Theater? Kodak
That's it.
Theater.
Thank you. And there was a big rush to do that. And what happened was they had to stop it because there was not enough time for the fire department to come and do what they had to do because we were underfunded. I'm just saying that all of this really and truly is something that we shouldn't have to go through again. I mean, I'm not faulting you, I'm just saying that for the record, we need to keep saying that, and we need to keep saying that, and we need to keep saying that.
Yes, ma'am, I
So,
agree.
I want to thank you, too. This is probably, really and truly, one of the most complete reports that I've read about exactly all that's included in fire prevention, all of the things that you do and all of the things that you have to do. And I'm still kind of outraged about the fact that we don't get that brush clearance money back, but that it goes into the general fund, but then we have to go across the street and beg for stuff. If they would just give us some of that money back, or all of it back, we'll be fine. I'm done.
President, may I ask a question about
I'm
cannabis? Cannabis is a new thing that's been added on over the years. Are you only inspecting the legal programs, the ones that have been approved by the city?
The cannabis unit only looks at those legal occupancies. The legal unit has a subunit known as the illegal cannabis unit, which looks at all of the, like whenever we're notified of an illegal cannabis operation, it's that subunit of the legal unit that responds to that.
So there is a unit that looks at the illegal?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, okay. And I'm sure it's understaffed, too.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Thank you, Chief Perez. I know you inherited this very recently, and you're off to a good start. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And thanks to my senior management analyst for helping putting this together.
Let me
Who
say
is
to
your
you-
senior management analyst?
That is Kimberly Perry.
Oh, very good.
Let me say this to you again. This was actually an excellent report for people who are not sworn, for us to read and understand and follow along with in terms of what we do for governance. So I really want to thank you. This is one of the, because there's a lot of complex information, but the way in which you laid it out, section by section, and then you gave us information under each section so that we could understand it. So I really want to thank you very much for that, because I don't think we actually always understand what's going on in fire prevention.
Thank
So
you.
thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No? I just want to make sure we get all schools and churches inspected. Because those are places where we have a large group of people gathering week after week, day after day, and it's just important. I know that you do the best you can, but those are really important.
And real quick, if I
Community
may,
institutions.
you said we do the best we can, and just to highlight the professionalism and the dedication of our FPB, our Fire Prevention Bureau, with the leadership of Chief Perez. I'm smiling because they do such an incredible job with limited capacity, limited staffing. But just to be on the record to say, from the LAFD's perspective, we're always going to be advocating for additional positions because we can easily justify it. And we're at a tipping point organizationally where whether it's in the Fire Prevention Bureau, emergency operations, administrative operations, with everything under that, we're at that point where it's not sustainable. And even with these incredible statistics and metrics, that's our inspectors jumping from unit to section, and because they're cross-trained and they 100% buy into the mission, we as in the FPB and across the department is able to get to this point, right? With no mission any less important than the other. So just to highlight again what the Fire Prevention Bureau is able to do with even the vacancies, that's our people coming together and going above and beyond. It's just my stance is this is not a sustainable plan. Mm-hmm. So to fill the vacancies that the Fire Prevention Bureau needs in relation to even adding positions, but knowing where we are citywide it's a tight budget. So, we have to take that proactive approach, and we are, to make sure that from the commission all the way up to the mayor and city leadership that, okay, what else and how else can we ensure we are, going after those positions and the infrastructure and all the things. But just to highlight the amazing work the Fire Prevention Bureau is doing just in this report, let alone, where we could take it if we were actually fully funded and fully staffed. Think about that, where we could take the Bureau as well as the rest of the department. So just high-level thought process is that's where we need to go, but we're going to need the support, the funding, the staff, the infrastructure to support our department to get us to where we need to go.
Well, my final thought is this, and I'm going to say it so that you don't have to say it. Everything is important, and I understand that, and you're going to prioritize. This almost seems to me that this is irresponsible on the part of the city. When we understand what it is that all of the construction and all of the things that we're trying to do to make the city livable, affordable housing, controlling whether or not we're going to have more and more fires in the city. From my perspective, I'm not asking the commission to agree with me, but from my perspective, this seems to be particularly irresponsible, that we can't get the civilians we need, that we can't get the inspectors that you need, we can't do those kinds of things. What I would really like, Chief Crowley, if you could, I have been visiting city council offices. I'm asking just for me, maybe other fire commissioners would want it too, but I'd like a list now of your priorities. I've been listening, and so I've been now to 5 council offices, but I think it would help me if I could have better talking points so that we all know what your priorities are and what the things are that we're fighting for first. I'm fighting for full funding, but like Vice President DeLuca says, that's a losing battle. But I think if that doesn't create more work for you, if I could have talking points so that when I make an appointment to go and talk to a city council person, not only can I explain what your priorities are, but I can explain why. With this report, which I'm going to continue to say is just excellent, I now will know how to talk about this. But I want to be able to know how to talk about other things as well, so that we are all on the same page. I think we need to join with UFLAC so that we understand what their priorities are? Do they dovetail? If we're all going to be talking to people, which I'm going to encourage us that we should be doing that, is it possible for me to get that kind of a script?
Absolutely. We already have it for you. We're ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it would be good for all of us. I think it would be great for all of us to have it, because we all talk with city council members from time to time.
Yeah. Okay.
I move that we receive and file this excellent report and continue to fight for more funding.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
So moved. Thank you again.
Perez.
That takes us to 6B, the verbal report by the department, the verbal report by the department on arson counterterrorism section policy.
That's the man. Good morning.
Good morning, President Hudley Hayes, Vice President DeLukage, Commissioners, Chief Crowley, City Attorney Nguyen, Leticia, Command Staff, and honored guests. My name is Thomas Raymond.
Hi.
I'm the brand-new Arson
new.
Section Commander.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
I'm sorry, I was just saying that you're a new guy.
I am. Yeah. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
I've been assigned to arson, and I've been there for just a couple weeks. I've been brought up to speed on things that need to happen, things that have been asked for, and we'll be carrying that mission forward. I wanted to take the opportunity first to introduce myself, second to share what this amazing team, I hadn't spent much time at arson, to be completely honest with you, before this assignment. I can tell you that the men and women in that section are talented, hardworking, and dedicated to the safety of the city. So it's been an honor to get to know them, to work with them, and to help serve the mission that they have to keep us safe. In the last couple weeks, I just want to give a brief overview of the things that the team has been able to accomplish. Safety is our number one priority, especially for our members. It had been brought to the attention that some of the safety equipment was outdated and not appropriate for the members. Our senior investigators, the investigators in the section, the captains worked diligently with the Fire Foundation through, I would say, grateful donors to acquire 22 custom-fit, gender-specific bulletproof vests. All members have been fitted and assigned those vests. They will be in our office in 4 weeks or less. We have received new ballistic helmets that are in compliance with modern-day safety protocols. We have an awesome investigator, Gus Gaeta. He's assigned with our arson dog, Pantera. They're an amazing team. We've received two new vehicles to support this member and his specialty. We will be picking them up this Wednesday. We are working diligently to bring arson all together in our overall dream of having an arson's headquarters where A Unit 1, 2, and the rest of the office are all in one place working together. We just finished the testing process for the arson investigators. I'm happy to announce that we've had 7 successful trainees make the list. Since 1918, we're in historic times in arson. Up until a few years back, we had only had 1 female arson investigator assigned to arson. Today, and only in the last year, we've had 2 female arson investigators. I'm happy to announce on this new list, we have 2 additional females. The number 1 on the list is another female. We're very excited about that. Strengthen our diversity. And I'm glad to see in those numbers and that reflect in our focus. Now, for what you asked for today, for me to share with you, I understand 5 days before I was appointed, there was a meeting, a commission meeting, where it was expressed the need for a arson policy or a reference guidebook where we take all of the things that we do at arson and put them collaboratively into one location. I understand that need, and we have hit the ground running. We have, since just in the few weeks I've been there, we have surveyed our members, including in being inclusive with our arson investigators, our senior investigators, past captains, past chiefs, current administration, to find out what our goal, focus, and agenda will be to complete this. We've put together a work group. That work group consists of immediately our arson investigators, our senior investigators, and then the command staff at the office. And that will eventually roll over as we have a gross book or a combination of things that we feel need to be in there, start working with our stakeholders to bring that document forward. I know that it was shared that that is a lengthy process. We are going to work diligently to speed it up as fast as we can. We recognize the need for that. That is the update from arson moving forward. We can move to questions if you have any. My recommendation, if I could make one, Madam President, is that in 90 days, I would like to come back and present a rough draft of what we have from the section as we move it through the process so that you can see not only progress, but have some input. I look forward to working closely with the Fire Commission in meeting this need.
Are there questions?
I would like to I congratulate you on your new assignment.
Thank you.
And I've heard there are a lot of good things taking place in arson, and I'm happy to hear that. I know that we also have been working on getting new vehicles for the other investigators also. I'm interested in, we had a change in the departments a few years back. What is the status of bringing back Arson Unit 2 so that the city is fully covered? Because, there are times when the city is not covered, or maybe between 4 and 6 in the morning you need another arson coverage and you only have one for the whole city of LA. That's pretty big for one unit, and one unit's busy and you need a new one. What's the status of, have you considered, are you aware of that?
Yes, Commissioner Woods-Gray, that is a great point. It's one we're very aware of. It is a priority for us. With the establishment of the new trainee list, we anticipate filling those 3 vacancies that we currently have, and as quickly as we can, open up our Arson Unit 2. We do feel that there is a need. We do know that there is a need, especially on nights and weekends. Mm-hmm. The city is large, and that is a priority for us.
Yes, because sometimes there's like on the Saturdays and Sundays, 24 hours, one coverage, one unit.
Yes,
That's pretty big, and arson has become a real issue in LA for some reason. I've noticed, just through the news and Citizens and those different programs that I keep up with. So I'm happy to hear, though, that you're aware and you're working on replacing that.
Yes, that is a priority. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other? Okay. Not right this minute, because I know you're going to come back in 90 days with a written report. But here's what I'd like to see in the report. I need to understand the hierarchical structuring that's new. I'm glad to see you in high. I'm glad you're there. But when you bring back the report, I just need to understand who reports to you, who you report to, and how that plays into that whole section of Homeland Security, because that's what you're under, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So I need to know all of that in the report. It just helps us to focus and understand how that works, right? And the other thing that I want to make perfectly clear to you is that I get it that you're going to do a guidebook. I don't think that's enough. Here's where we're seeming to have the challenges in arson, as I understand it, and we've had like 11 to 14 audits of arson. I think what I'm looking for is a very clear understanding. You can call it a guidebook if you want to, you can call it a policy if you want to, but I want to see not necessarily in this first report, because I understand that you are new and you're going to do this incrementally. Maybe that's a bad word, but you're going to do it step by step by step by step. But at some point, I'm going to want to see something that is very clear and very transparent about what happens. First of all, how an arson investigator gets to an event, and what happens once they get there, because that seems to be where we're having the trouble. Is once the arson investigator gets to the event, we keep seeing these head bumps along the way of, my understanding is that there is a person who runs the event, who's in charge of the event. Enter arson. And it seems to me like that's where we're having this kind of conflict. Who's in charge? Who directs whom? How does that happen? How does that work? Who gets to say we need to hold the space instead of taking everybody away, and then arson having to go to court to get order from a judge to be able to come back onto private property to continue the report. As I understand it, those are the things that we're having difficulty with from the arson investigator's perspective and from the department's perspective. So I'm not sure that a guidebook is going to do it for me as much as we need something. And I'm not suggesting in any way that arson does not want to be a part of the department, but we need something that's very clear for them to understand. When a call goes out to arson, 311, wherever it comes from, what happens?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
who's in charge of that, so that we don't have this, well, okay, so I got a call and it's 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm not going, and, or, you know, that kind of thing. Then once they get to the incident, what happens then? Does that make sense to you?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, I think
you
that
will get a
will.
comprehensive
Yes.
rundown
I think
of all that.
if we have that, because the first report that Chief Nelson gave us about the hiring process was excellent. You know, we already have that. We got that at a commission meeting, and I thought that that was excellent for us to be able to really understand what happens when you want to apply to be an arson investigator. I think the other problem that we're having, if you will, or the other challenge that we're having is what happens when arson is called out? Who calls them? And then, of course, the other question that I have is, you said that you're trying to have arson be all in one place, so they wouldn't be at Fire Station 17. My understanding is that some of them are at 17, and then some of them are not on a 24 shift, and so those people are someplace else. So do I understand you to say that you're trying to consolidate that?
I wouldn't say consolidate. I would say bring the team together. That's just one of our goals. We're working to bring arson all together. Yes, we have day investigators that work during the day and then potentially on call at night to help cover the city, which is hard on our members. And then we have, yes, a Unit 1 that's at Fire Station 17. Our goal is to have arson all be together.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I need to understand what their relationship is to LAPD, who says that they believe that they're part of some Unit 99 or something like that. And I'm not expecting any answers today, but I just wanted to share with you what I would like to see, so that the report is at least as complete as it can be for those of us who do governance, as opposed to this side of the house that does all the operational stuff. Is that?
Yes,
help?
ma'am. I fully understand what you would like, and I think that's it's prudent. We'll provide that for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes,
Can I ask just one other question,
Of
Madam
course.
President? Clerical staff, have you received clerical staff?
We have not yet, ma'am. We, with the civilian hiring freeze, we also do not have clerical staff.
Oh, your problem is a freeze.
Yes, ma'am.
Everyone's problem is the freeze.
Yeah.
Okay. Before, I thought that they just couldn't find people. Now it's a freeze. so-
Right, yeah, like 300 times.
Yeah, but this is
Okay, I know that you need because just as you were saying, they collect the data, somebody needs to process it. They're trying to do,
Yep.
so
Our
there's
me-
a lot
our
of work to
members
do.
I go back to, our members are amazing. They're making it work. with the equipment they have, with the support they have in the office, they are extremely dedicated. But as you support and build the infrastructure, it allows our amazing employees to be able to fulfill their potential.
The problem with making it work with less is that it's hard to get more. So
That is true.
slow down.
This just
Betty.
reiterates what my point earlier, right? That we are no longer in a position to sustain the model. And this is just another example of our people stepping up and going above and beyond, but that's across the entire department.
Yep.
For you to talk to any unit, section, bureau commander, whatever it may be, it's, our people are amazing, but we're at that point where we can't sustain this.
Yep,
Can't-
yep.
can't work.
But I think that's why it's important. Thank you so much, too, and welcome.
Thank you.
And
Pleasure to
we
meet you.
won't try to just harass you too much.
Anytime.
All right,
But
thank you,
very
Chief.
much. This just goes back to why we all need those talking points, so that we're over. I mean, the bottom line is, I think the first talking point is, we are going to get to the tipping point where we can't sustain anything.
We're already there.
Okay, well, then we need to say that. I mean, we need to say that out loud, really and truly. Where did he go?
He sat back down.
Oh, there he is.
I thought I was dismissed, ma'am.
No, you are. I was just wanted to say thank you very much and welcome again.
Thank you so much.
All right. Do I have to do something about a verbal report? Thank you. So now we're going to have the item 6C, verbal report by the department on the Fire Academy female recruit breakdown. Oh, hi, Chief Lambert.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam President, Commissioners, Chief Crowley, City Attorney, LAFD Administration, and honored guests. I'm Battalion Chief Tim Lambert, and I'm the commander of the Recruit Services Section. I just want to start by saying what a pleasure it was, Madam President, having you and Vice President DeLugich out to Drill Tower 81 this past week for a visit. I think any time that we can get together and have conversations about what we do, it leads to better understanding on both our parts. So thank you, and we look forward to the next opportunity to do that. So I'm here today to give you an update. In November of 23, I appeared before you to present my annual report on diversity and retention for the LAFD Training Academy. At this meeting, the board requested a report back breaking down the female recruits in the academy for fiscal year 22-23. Typically, to obtain this data, we do two different things. Number one, we do an exit interview for every recruit who resigns or is not successful. And number two, we talk to each class that is about to graduate. I actually did this yesterday for the class that's graduating Thursday to solicit any feedback as to how their experience was and how we can improve. Unfortunately, because fiscal year 22-23 was largely before I assumed this position, I do not have that data for the previous fiscal year. However, in looking at the data since I've been at Recruit Services, as well as from input from individuals who did complete the academy, it has revealed 5 recurrent challenges and identified areas for improvement. Some of these areas, so I'll outline those 5 recurrent challenges and what we have done to address them. The areas of concern are delineated as follows. Sense of inadequate physical preparedness for the demands of the academy. Number 2, need for exposure to drill tower evolutions beforehand to instill confidence and competence in incoming recruits. A call for access to the drill tower schedule to acquire knowledge, refine skills, and prepare diligently for forthcoming lessons. A desire for a comprehensive grasp of grading criteria and consistency in evaluation standards upheld by drill tower staff. And finally, a necessity for extended practice in personal protective equipment or their turnout gear during the basic portion of the academy to ensure thorough preparation for phase evaluation and for their upcoming field assignments. In response to number 1 and number 2, the Firefighter Candidate Advancement Program is customized, also referred to as CAPS that we talked about, is customized to provide a skill-oriented curriculum, ensuring participants are proficient in manipulative exercises aligned with training academy curriculum. Number 2, the pre-academy, which is a pivotal first component of the 20-week training academy program, spans 4 weeks, incorporates fitness training aimed at enhancing female recruits' strength and stamina. Further, 1 week of the pre-academy is dedicated solely to teaching the fundamentals of hose and ladder evolutions, providing all recruits with the essential techniques required for adept maneuvering in non-graded and non-evaluated settings. Also, throughout the academy, recruits undergo guided physical fitness training meticulously designed by our department strength and conditioning coaches, focused on targeting exercises that mirror movements necessary for successful evolution of the manipulative exercises. So all that happens in that back building that we took you to the other day. Also, an augmented allocation of time within the Training Academy syllabus emphasizes practicing additional practice for high failure rate evolutions, ensuring female recruits are better equipped to overcome challenges commonly encountered in operational scenarios. In response to number 3, about the drill tower schedule, the dissemination of a comprehensive syllabus outlining both the academic curriculum and manipulative exercises to be instructed and evaluated on each day in the academy. Also, at the end of the week, the class leader every Friday has a meeting with the 2 drill masters, providing insights into the forthcoming week's activities. So this really allows them to anticipate what's coming and study and or prepare ahead of time. In response to number 4, this administration has introduced a chance for the recruits to briefly view the grade sheets before they have the test. We try to have them not focus on the grade sheet, more what they were taught that is in alignment with the grade sheet. We've also implemented a rater reliability training for all Academy staff members, which underscores the dedication to maintaining evaluation standards consistent with field application. This training involves peer evaluation provided by instructors to recruits. Peer evaluation of instruction provided by instructors to recruits. A recalibration of the points of emphasis by the subject matter experts to the staff so as to present a consistent message and teaching criteria to the recruits. And focus on removing subjectivity in the examination process and uniformity of content delivery. In response to number 5, the extended practice in PPEs, conducting the guided physical fitness training while the recruits are adorned in full PPEs, delivering a more authentic simulation of real-world scenarios and enhancing preparedness for evolutions, and gradual incorporation of PPEs into grading evolutions. This integration has revealed a correlation between extended periods spent in turnout gear during basic module and enhanced performance in phase evaluations, underscoring the importance of immersive training experiences in elevating recruits' competency levels and readiness for field deployment. Further measures have been proactively implemented to enhance the overall experience and ensure every recruit has the best chance for graduation and readiness. Some of these measures include the rigorous scrutiny and continuous adjustments of phase evaluations, to reflect a commitment to ensuring alignment with the practical expectations of entry-level LAFD field members. And finally, although not exclusive to this administration, the reassign program that we spoke of, the reassign program stands out as a distinctive feature compared to other departments. It provides an opportunity for recruits who narrowly miss qualification for graduation or sustain injuries while during the training academy to continue without the need for reapplication for their position. With an impressive success rate of over 90% for graduation among reassignments, the program stands as a testament to the Academy's commitment to supporting female recruits throughout the challenges and fostering their journey towards being proficient firefighters. Additionally, we also have a rehire program where we allow, upon our recommendation, allow recruits to be rehired without going through the whole process as well. Moving forward, my intent is to continue gathering this type of data and input from all LAFD recruits and include this breakdown of female firefighter recruits who were unsuccessful and the things that we learned from our exit interviews in my subsequent annual report. This concludes my update. I will take any questions at this time.
I have some questions. Hi, Chief.
Hi.
And thank you for the great tour of the drill tower. We really learned a lot. Just one quick question what is the percent of the pass rate of women recruits right now? That's what we're going to hear about.
So as was in the report that we did, are you speaking for class fiscal year 22-23 or the current fiscal year?
Well, whatever you have information for, I guess. I mean, either or both,
Okay, 1 second.
or you can get back to us if you need to.
I don't have that information in front of me,
Okay. That's okay.
but it does vary from class to class.
Right. So, I mean, I wanted to ask you about some of the, I mean, you covered a lot, and thank you for that. I wondered, first of all, about feedback from the recruits. Do you feel like, are they comfortable giving their feedback? Do you feel like, and what do you do to make them comfortable? What form does that feedback take?
Yeah, so as far as the exit interviews for anyone who resigns,
Right.
it's a small group setting, and we really, we ask them a series of questions, and we really encourage, much like we do when we talk to the recruits before they graduate, we encourage them to be as open and honest as we can, because their feedback is extremely valuable to what we do. And with the mission of increasing recruit retention and specifically female recruit retention, we take any feedback to heart. And when we go to the academies, we find that when we go to the academy before they graduate, they're very open and honest with us because they're basically done with the academy, and we've gotten some of the really good feedback from the graduating recruits as well.
And what kind of things do you hear from the graduating recruits?
So one of the things, kind of like I mentioned before, some of them were saying we wish we would have had a schedule or more time in PPEs during the basic, because when they get to the phase evaluation portion of the curriculum, all the skills are put together and it's in full gear. So things of that nature.
Okay, can I ask another couple questions?
No. Of course you can.
I mean, I can take turns if people want to.
You can ask
Okay.
as many questions as you want.
And I was very impressed with CAPS, and wonder, and is CAPS the same as the 4-week pre-academy?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
So CAPS is
That's
for
voluntary.
Yes. So
And-
CAPS is voluntary. They don't get paid to be there, and it's anyone who is in our hiring process. So
Right.
anyone who's in our hiring process, they know that like 4 days a week at different facilities, not just at 81s, but
Right.
at 40s as well. We have different nights nights or days available. In addition, the way it's kind of designed, if they come for like 6 weeks, we give them an evolution every week. So to answer your question, the CAPS is voluntary, and then the pre-academy, and technically it's not a pre-academy, but we call it the pre-academy because, so it's just physical fitness, really just physical fitness, and it's introduction to all these little things that they may have never had any experience with. So they may not know what a hose coupling is, or they may not know the parts of the ladder. So we're able to introduce them to those things in a non-graded setting, so to decrease the stress, if you will, and increase their learning on those basic parts before, when they get to week 5, then the grading starts.
So that is mandatory, because that's part of their training, that's part of their
Definitely, yeah,
training
and
process.
the CAPS thing, it's highly encouraged, but we really can't make it mandatory because of logistical reasons. People might work, or people live remote from here.
Right, right. And do you feel like with all these enhancements that you listed, and I'm especially, I was really impressed also with the peer instructors and wish we had more. Can add to the list. Do you feel like that's made, you don't have a number today, but has that made, not do you feel like, has it made a difference in firefighter success and graduation rates, specifically for women firefighters, as we're talking
I
about
definitely
today?
feel like it's made a difference. And I'll go back to one of the things I talked about, our reassignment program. And I think the real value of the reassignment program is, we get people from all walks of life. Some people may have studied fire science in junior college. Some may have had zero experience coming into the academy. And it's hard to learn these skills in a limited amount of time. So I really feel like the investment in our recruits in the long term, and allowing them the opportunity to go through again and refine their skills and abilities, it really pays off. And as far as some of the other things we've done, the strength and stamina issue has really been an issue. It has been a subject of conversation for years, and between the CAPS program and the what we call the pre-academy, getting them up to physical speed so that they can perform, I think it's making a huge difference.
So we should see that difference in the graduation rates soon then, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have for now, but I might ask more later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chief Lambert, I want to really thank, as Vice President DeLuca said, you and Chief Brown. The tour, for me, was excellent. It answered a lot of the questions that I had. It explained to me what it meant when you talked about rehires, and how we do give people an opportunity to go back and come back into the drill tower so that we can make sure that they're successful maybe the second time around. It helped me to understand that you actually look at the people that you're going to have rehires or reassigned, so that we know that if a person is like really, really not going to make it no matter what, we don't encourage them to be reassigned, because we're pretty clear, and I know that sounds maybe not great, but I think that is really what we should be doing. We should be spending our time and our money and our resources on people that we think, if they just could have a little bit more time, they could be successful. So that was one of the issues that, people keep talking about, that's not inequitable, but in fact it is equitable. And I want to appreciate the fact that you took time to explain that to me. The other thing that I think was important was there was this issue about whether or not we were making sure that everybody's turnouts worked for them, so that women weren't having turnouts that didn't work for them because they were too big or whatever. And then you explained that everybody at this point gets measured and fitted and all of that kind of stuff for the turnouts that they wear, so that also now does not become a problem for me, when you hear these things. I think the most important thing for me, the most important takeaway for me was, in addition to the things that I learned, was my ability to be able to talk to people specifically in my community. Because there's a lot of misinformation out there. And the more information that you gather, the more data that you have to support the position that there's not a lot of inequitability, Chief Crowley, baked into the drill tower. And I'm not talking about perceptions and all of the things that we know that we need to work on, but one of the most important things that we don't really talk about enough is people continually say to me that they can't afford, to go through the drill tower. And then I discovered that we pay them to go through the drill tower. And it's basic firefighter pay, right? So it's a goodly amount of money. I'm not trying to say that it's a king's ransom, but there has to be some way that we keep saying that to people as we're doing the recruiting. And I can only talk about the fact that I'm active in my community, which is the Black community. And so when I go places and I talk up the fire department and becoming a firefighter and what an incredibly honorable way that is to give back to the community, that's what I kept hearing. And I was unaware of that. So I really want to thank you for that. I was unaware of that. So that's one of the things that we can do that will help us to help to overcome people saying, I can't afford, right, to be a firefighter because I can't afford to take that much time without getting paid. And that is a very prevalent conception in not only the African American community, but I would assume other low wealth communities where people really believe that we're asking them to do this incredible amount of time just preparing and maybe not being successful. So I try to think about the things that I learned that helped me to be a good ambassador for the LAFD, because I consider myself to be part of LAFD and not an invading, some invading governance people who are just there, but to learn as much as we can. So I want to thank you. I did learn things. I think Vice President DeLuca just says that as well. It was excellently put together. Are you planning on coming back to us with a written report?
I can submit a written report to you of the items I just discussed.
Like in the next couple of months. I don't mean next time, but in the next couple of months. I think it would be nice for all of us to be able to have a written report, because some of us went and some of us didn't. And I think it's really important. I am much clearer now myself about what goes on in the drill tower. I liked the transparency and the fact that you didn't flinch at any of the questions that we asked. Did you feel that way?
Yes, I just wanted to add, I just had some suggestions about the report that Chief Lambert comes back with.
Okay.
And that just,
I'll hold my suggestions.
oh,
Go.
no, you go.
No,
and I'll-
go.
Okay.
Frickin' Pratt.
Just I would like to, as specific and quantitative, I mean, the sort of the qualitative information is always useful, but I really would like to know, like, how many recruits we're getting, how many are washing out and in what ways, how many are going back to the reassignment program. I'm just like hard numbers all the way through. How many go to the CAPS, take advantage of the CAPS program? How does their graduation rate look like compared to people who didn't? Do you have recommendations about this 4-week so-called pre-academy? Like, should that be longer? Should that include more things? Like, how has that been successful? Just hard numbers. Thank you.
Ma'am.
Now, did I understand you to say that in the what we call the pre-academy portion of it, it's 4 weeks, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Did I understand you to say that people don't have to do that?
No, that they do. That's
They
and
have
it's
to
kind of a misnomer when we call it the pre-academy, because technically they're getting paid, they're required to be there. But I think the reason we call it the pre-academy is it's not really great. It's not graded, so
Okay.
it's a lot of
Okay.
physical fitness and just introduction to a lot of things before the grading starts in week 5.
So when you come back with the report, you need to explain that to us.
Okay.
Not just the CAPS, which is totally voluntary, but the you're calling it the pre-academy, but basically it really is all part of what they have to do
Yes, ma'am.
to be able to enter the academy and move forward. So if you can explain that to us in the report as well.
Yes, ma'am.
And also, I think it's important for you to explain the grading, not just the grading process, but how different people do grading so that you don't get the same 3 people who are always doing the grading, but you get a much more diverse set of eyes on rotational stuff and on the grading, so that we don't have to worry about the fact that maybe we wind up with groupthink, which is something that we don't want to have happen. But this was for me, this was a good start, this verbal report, and I really do want to thank you, because I think you paid a lot of attention to creating that opportunity for us to be there and ask as many questions as we could. Also, thank you for the donuts.
I've got one more thing I'd like to see in that report. And I don't know if this is your purview, but you can ask around, of the women specifically who graduate, how many are hired, and then how many make it off probation?
And could we add that of the rehires, can you tell the percentage of the success with the rehires?
Right, when they
ma'am.
go back, yeah.
Is that what you were asking, the women who are rehired? What's their success?
Yes, specifically the women recruits.
Okay.
Right, right.
But do you mean all women recruited?
Well,
Are-
not that many.
Are just the rehire?
So-
That's what he's asking.
Yes,
I think
specifically the women. I'm
to get-
interested in the other groups too, but specifically the women, how many, all those specific questions. How many come
And it
in,
would-
how many get out, how many go
And
back through? how many-
it would be great if we could also see that by ethnicity and sexual orientation, because all of those are diversity questions for me.
Right.
So it'd be great if we could, as much as you can, so that we really get a good profile on who's being successful, who's going back through. Once they go back through, are they successful? And then I think Vice President DeLucas is right. How many of them, once they get into the stations and on probation, how many of them actually do we retain?
Yes, ma'am.
And could he include in the report information that you've gained that would help you to make the program more successful from the women who are leaving, the ones that you've had the assessments with? And a question about that assessment, you do it as a small group. How small is the group?
It's the person that's resigning and myself and the captain to my office, Captain Halverson.
Oh, okay, I see, okay. Because I know that sometimes people are reluctant to actually tell you exactly what they're thinking if you have too many people. But
Right.
I understand you have 2 people.
And real quick too, as we're building out our, with Chief Moore, with his bureau, that's the beauty of having that in regard to an outside person. They can feel more comfortable. So we're already starting to look into that. And then that way our training staff can focus on training. And then we can really dig down and create that space where it's comfortable for those individuals that are separating from the city to have, we want to know. And I think we all want to know, from the training staff to me, all the way up the organizations to commission, it's like, what was their lived experience? And that's the beauty of bringing in staff under Chief Moore, because now that person doesn't feel or may not feel so compelled to, this is the staff I've just been, working with. And it's kind of that outside perspective, but inside that we can try to move towards the environment where the recruits feel like, okay, I need to you just lay it out. It could have been great, it was all me, or hey, I could have used this, and then we have a direct correlation that now we can report back and work towards, having an academy that the members do feel like they're listened to. But in the end, we're holding a standard, and we have a safe space for people to communicate their needs.
I think the final thing, I'm sorry.
I just said thank you.
Oh, the final thing that I think it would be helpful for us to know is how many or what percentage of people that are in the drill tower get reassigned because of injury? So that we kind of can understand, is that an issue for us? And if it is, what are we going to do about that?
Right, we've got all that data, so we'd be happy to put it together.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one last question. Hi. Are we going to tie this in some way, once we get all of this information, to the drill tower validation study, once we hear that?
I can answer that for you. So, yeah, and that's all part of what we're going after in the budget, to have this validation test. So the great news is that our training staff, we track everything, right? So now it's just a matter of compiling or identifying maybe what we're not tracking, but I certainly know what a deep dive they do in the data, even from your question about our recruits that are injured, how long are they off, at what point do they get rehired, what's the maximum, what's the minimum, all of that. So all of that is tracked. So we already have that data that we'd be able to explore with that third party once we identify and get that funded.
Right.
But also it's also taking a big step back, and what else do we need to track? And that's where we can put our heads together and make sure that we, are looking at everything in its totality.
I mean, my question is related to the fact that this is once again an issue of funding. And so the city really needs to understand, I'm not sure that the city side really understands the intricacies of how all of the things that we do actually mesh together, so that maybe in other departments, they can ask for funding that is kind of siloed and stovepiped. We really can't, Chief Crowley. We need to be able to help them understand how everything depends on everything else in order for the fire department to run at optimal, funded. It needs to be optimally funded. But I'm not sure always that the city understands how one thing depends on another thing.
Right.
And so they look at the budget and they just strip something out because they say, oh, well, we'll just take this out, without really understanding that there's the potential that they could strip something out that then starts that domino effect. And then it weakens every other piece of the department. So I'm going to tell you again, I want my script as soon as possible.
It may already be in your inbox.
All right. Well, because I have three appointments already set, so I want my script like tomorrow.
Got it.
Okay.
All right,
Once
thank you.
again, I really want to thank you. It was a day really and truly well spent for me, I think, for our independent assessor, and as well as for Vice President DeLucich. And I want to make a comment right here, if I might. One of the reasons that we invite our independent assessor with us, because I don't think that always happened in the past, is because I don't believe that audits should be gotcha things. I think the more our independent assessor comes with us and begins to understand things, an audit to me is a joint effort. So that even the person who's doing the audit, if they have enough information so that they can sit with the department or the unit that they're auditing, there can be some give and take and some understanding and some knowledge before that audit. That is not to say that I am asking the independent assessor to pull back on whatever needs to be in that audit, but I want to shift 180 degrees to the fact that I don't believe that audits should be gotcha things. I think audits should be things that strengthen us, to make us, give us more information, to make us understand where the gaps are, what we need to do to fill those gaps, and what we need to do to move forward as opposed to, oh, the commission's just going to do an audit so that they can just jump on the department. I don't think that gets us, I just don't think that gets us anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam President, Honorable Commissioners, Chief Crowley, staff and guests. My name is Tyler Dixon. I'm an acting deputy chief serving as the chief of staff. I have the honor of updating you on our efforts to implement the recommendations that were found in the standards of cover analysis. To refresh a little bit of background and context to this report, in May of last year, the department provided the Board of Fire Commissioners the complete report provided by a third-party vendor named Citygate, which conducted a standards of cover analysis, which is an internationally recognized process to determine the appropriateness of a deployment model for a fire and EMS service. One note, again, is that this analysis only looks at fire suppression and emergency medical services deployment model. It does not cover our specialized resources like urban search and rescue or hazardous materials or arson investigation or fire prevention, for example. What this report did was outline our deployment model as it is and point out the service gaps. Now, the LAFD was not shocked by the findings that the standards of cover analysis provided. Based on our knowledge of our increased call volume over the years and our intimate knowledge of our boots on the ground or our members that are daily responding to over 1,500 to 1,600 calls a day in some of the busiest fire stations in the nation or in the world, we did receive the report that acknowledged that we have some of the highest service demands in 28 of our stations. In fact, Citygate, who is a very experienced vendor in this arena, was shocked at the level of work that takes place in 28 of our busiest fire stations throughout the city, and pointed out that we have a daily drawdown of resources across the city, particularly in 5 pockets in the metropolitan downtown area, to the west of the downtown area, to the south of the downtown area in South Los Angeles, and a couple other service gaps in the San Fernando Valley, as well as the Hollywood district. We have a daily drawdown of resources, primarily on our emergency medical services demand. They also pointed out that we have, in their estimation, several gaps in our fire suppression coverage area, not only on the drawdown of EMS resources and fire suppression resources on our high EMS demand, but also just on our daily deployment of fire resources, we do have service gaps. They did stop short in completely analyzing the totality of those service gaps based on the distribution of our fire stations and just made an analogy to that, pointing out just the single, in their estimation, highest service gap based on fire station distribution in the area of Panorama City and the San Fernando Valley. Their number one recommendation to the LAFD in this standards of cover was the additional influx of a large number of light vehicles, particularly tasked with shoring up our ability to respond to the large service demand on the emergency medical services side, not only offloading the call volume of the current light vehicles, but offloading EMS tasking of our heavy apparatus as well. They specifically recommend, additionally, the LAFD evaluate the evolution of service demand, not just the sheer volume of emergency medical services demand, but that the City of Los Angeles has evolved its request for services to include not only traditional life-threatening medical emergencies like cardiac arrests or heart attacks or traumatic events or car accidents, but also the increasing and continually increasing demand for services like low acuity medical problems or urgent care type medical problems, psychiatric emergencies, and emergencies both EMS and fire suppression related to the people experiencing homelessness population in the City of Los Angeles. They recommend up to 26 alternative light vehicle response units that can meet those demands. And what they've outlined is the LAFD's deployment of advanced provider response units, which meets each of those demands. They recommend 26 of those. They also recommend 14 paramedic rescue ambulances and work relief for an additional 26 ambulances, on top of one additional fire station that they've recommended. And they've also alluded that the current fire station deployment model also has additional gaps, and the stations that are in the busiest areas are bursting at the seams and have no additional capacity to onboard these additional resources that they have recommended. So in November of last year, the department provided this body Board Report 23-114, which was the department's plan to implement additional resources based on these recommendations. In that plan, we outlined a 3-year tiered implementation, being fiscally minded, not to ask for all of these resources in one fiscal year. And we outlined a 3-year tiered implementation of the advanced provider response units, the fast response vehicles. Those are firefighter, paramedic with a firefighter on a light vehicle, the advanced provider response unit being a firefighter paramedic paired with an advanced provider, a nurse practitioner, or a physician's assistant, as well as 26 additional EMT ambulances and 14 additional paramedic ambulances, as well as one fire station with a fire engine and a battalion chief as identified. Where we are at in the implementation of this plan is that we have submitted a robust budget request for the 24-25 fiscal year. That includes the first year plan that was outlined in Board Report 23-114, which highlights that the 5 current advanced provider response units be converted from 10 hours, 4 days a week to 12 hours, 7 days a week, and add an additional 7 advanced provider response units, 8 paramedic ambulances, 10 EMT ambulances, 2 fast response vehicles, as well as appropriate overhead supervision, medical supervision, training staff, and quality assurance staff to supervise those additional resources. That budget ask has been submitted, and it is under review of the mayor's office. We would anticipate hearing back on April 20th, thereabouts, the mayor's proposed budget, and we will find out in that budget proposal what has been approved in that ask. Additionally, one item to update you is that this body did previously approve earlier this year, the acceptance of a SAFER grant, a federal grant, which will allow us the staffing to open one additional fire engine. Our plan is to open that fire engine either this quarter or next quarter, as early as potentially as April, in the Panorama City area to supplement that gap in response where we were identified in the report. Finally, based on the comments that we've made and the City Gates analysis, stopping short of analyzing the totality of our service gaps based on our fire stations distribution, the fire department has undertaken the next standards of cover analysis report to look at the next period of time. City Gates period of time looking at 2018 to 2020. The next standards of cover report, which is sponsored by the International Association of Firefighters, is funding this report based on the inability of the city to fund that next report. In collaboration with the United Firefighters of Los Angeles and Fire Department administrative staff. That report should be ready later this year. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
The new report will cover what period?
2020 through 2022.
Okay, thank you.
You give one of the best presentations to the commission, Chief Dixon, always. And I want to point that out. It appears to me that you have the skill set necessary to bring out the heart of the issues that we're asking for at the commission. So even though what you tell us is densely packed, it's also the way in which you lay out a presentation for us, for me, pulls all that stuff out and then it packs it together, it stacks it together in a way. I don't know if if I'm explaining it correctly, but for me, it pre-packages that so that each portion of it you lay out a general, and then you go to the specific, which is very helpful for those of us who govern but are not sworn, and so we don't always understand the general to the specific. So I want to thank you for that, because that was very packed, and we haven't had this report in quite some time, not because the fire department hasn't wanted to do it, but because of various things that have happened. But I once again, the same with Battalion Chief,
Thomas Raymond.
where is he? Oh,
Chief Raymond. Thomas Raymond.
Thomas, is that his, what's his name?
Thomas Raymond.
Thomas Raymond, the same thing, and then also with Chief Perez. These are the kind of presentations that need to happen for us to be fully apprised of what's going on. So I want to point that out kind of as a model for what it is that we would expect to see. All three of these gentlemen gave outstanding presentations this morning to the Fire Commission from my perspective. So thank you very much. I personally do not have any questions, which is unusual. Does anybody else have questions?
I do.
Chief, Commissioner,
Did I get promoted to chief?
you can be the chief. You can be the chief today.
No, thanks. This is, well, thank you. Yes, thank you so much, Chief Dixon. I was hoping that, and I don't see Matt Hernandez here right now, but what I would like, and I know you supervise him, what I would like is like key details of the budget process, like who's on which committee that we should be considering. I know President Hudley Hayes has been going after council members, and I would like to do that as well. But what are some of the key dates in the budget process? Who's on the key committees? Because, I mean, that's what I would ask at LUSD, our government relations person, to do, and she is doing. So I would like to request that of him, that he sends us that information so that we can participate when we can and where we can. And I know it's in our inboxes, the priorities, because so much of, I mean, everything for the standards recovery report depends on the budget. I mean, what we can expect to see out of the budget. So I would like that as soon as possible, in the
ma'am.
next couple of weeks, because time is of the essence.
For informational purposes, we will provide that through Letitia to the board. No problem.
Yeah, thank you very much. Perfect.
Questions or comments?
No, I just thank Chief Nelson for his report. Dixon, sorry.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, Chief.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
I lost my place. Are we done?
I think we're done. I move that we adjourn.
Okay.
Is that appropriate?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Very good.
We're adjourned.